On the show today, Adani remains the buzzword in Dalal Street as well as the political circles. Wholesale inflation eases in January, Air India's mega deal with Airbus, and a look at India Inc.'s hiring outlook for this year. This is Business Plus, your definitive edge to business and economy. Adani stocks continued to bleed on Tuesday, with 6 out of conglomerate's 10 listed entities logged in the lower circuit. Adani Enterprises, however, erased early losses and ended the day almost 2% higher on the back of strong earnings in the third quarter of financial year 2023. Adani Enterprises reported a consolidated net profit of 820 crores for third quarter compared to net loss of 12 crores a year ago in the same quarter. Now, in September quarter, net profit was approximately 460 crores. Revenues from operations rose by 42% year-on-year to 26,600 crores in October-December quarter of financial year 23 versus 18,700 crores in the same quarter previous fiscal. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization increased by a whopping 101% to 1,968 crores. Adani stocks, however, continued to bleed after MSCI reduced the weightage of 4 of the group's 10 companies in its standard index. News reports of group toning its growth targets dampened investor sentiment even further. 6 of Adani's 10 listed entities ended in the lower circuit today. Meanwhile, Adani Ports, Adani Enterprises and ACC ended the day in green. Now, to bolster sentiments, 2 Adani companies are set to repay their short-term commercial paper debt as they come due instead of rolling them over as is normal. Reports suggest that 2 companies have 50 billion rupees worth of CP due to mature in March this year. On the political front, however, responding to the Adani Hindenburg saga for the first time, Home Minister Amit Shah told the media that BJP has nothing to hide. Listen in.
अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने केस का संज्ञान लिया है। देश की कैबिनेट के सदस्य नाते जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने किसी मैटर को सीज किया हो, उस वक्त मेरे लिए बोलना ठीक नहीं होगा, परंतु इसमें बीजेपी के लिए कुछ छुपाने को नहीं है और ना किसी बात से डरने की जरूरत है।
Now, Gautam Adani-led businesses, remember, 10 companies in total have together lost about 50% of market value since 24th of January on the back of the Hindenburg report alleging improper use of offshore tax havens and stock manipulation. The Adani Group has denied the allegations and is also said to be mulling legal action against Hindenburg. But shifting focus for now, India's wholesale inflation dropped to a 2-year low in January to 4.73% year-on-year on the back of easing raw material prices. January's reading was below the 4.95% rate recorded in December of 2022, but higher than the consensus expectation of 4.54%. The decline in wholesale inflation last month was largely due to fall in key raw material prices like minerals, oils, chemical products, textiles, crude oil and natural gas. In January, fuel and power inflation was 15.15%, down from 18.09% in December of 2022. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, stood at 2.8% in January versus 3.2% in December of 2022. Food inflation, on the other hand, jumped to 2.95% in January from 0.65% in the previous month. Remember, due to high food prices, January's retail inflation also rose above the RBI's threshold of 6% for the first time in 3 months. In January, CPI inflation spiked to 6.52% compared to December's 1-year low of 5.72%. Joining us in the newsroom with his perspective is Karthik. Karthik, I want to ask you, wholesale inflation in January eased, but retail inflation spiked. What's causing the disparity?
So, Shweta, I think there's absolutely no surprise in the wholesale price inflation numbers, and the trend line that you just showed in the graphics also, we've seen that it's been on a consistent decline, and decline in the tick up on inflation. So while it's rising, the rate of rise has been falling down. So no surprise really there in WPI. The surprise actually came on the CPI figures yesterday, where we saw for once that the CPI had increased from December's numbers. And this came on the back of the rise in the food prices from 0.65% to almost 3%, 2.95% or so. So this decoupling has been an aberration. And I would actually see it only as an aberration, except that this aberration is likely to continue for another 2 months or so until food prices come in check. So all eyes are going to be on the RBI's next monetary policy. And it's expected that the hawkish stance would be maintained, and we could expect another round or two of rate cuts. Now remember, this is also going to be closely mirroring what we are likely to see on the Fed side in the US.
All right, Karthik, thanks very much for joining us with that perspective. And moving on, talking about retail inflation. US just released inflation numbers for the month of January, and it has come in higher than expected. Inflation dropped slightly to 6.4% from 6.5% in December. This was the smallest increase since October of 2021. The expectation, however, was 6.2%. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, moderated to 5.6% from 5.7%. The decline in retail price last month was in line with economists' expectation. Now, used car prices and medical care contributed to the decline in inflation last month. However, price increase for shelter and energy capped retail inflation from further receding. A softer inflation reading could reinforce market expectations of the Fed pausing its policy tightening after the first quarter of 2023. And moving to news from the aviation space now, Air India today formally announced a 250 aircraft order with Airbus, making it the largest deal in the commercial aircraft history. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and France's President Emmanuel Macron formally announced the deal today and hailed the historic partnership between the two companies. The deal with Airbus is a part of huge order by Air India for approximately 470 planes in total, which is expected to also include an order of about 220 planes from Boeing. Amid daily reports of layoffs and fears of slowdown crimping profit margins of business corporations, a survey by TAGD and Confederation of Indian Industry has revealed that India Inc. is looking at cautiously optimistic hiring intent of 20% for this year. The hiring outlook is being attributed to the resilience of India's economy amid larger global headwinds, led by a strong impetus in manufacturing and engineering sectors under the Make in India campaign. In terms of broad hiring trends, automotive with a 30% share, manufacturing with a 25% share, BFSI with a 24% share, and internet businesses with 19% shares will continue to lead India's demand for talent. However, hiring in IT sector is expected to grow at a muted rate of 10%. But it's not all doom and gloom for techies. Demand for tech talent will rise in conventionally non-tech industries like manufacturing, agriculture, and pharmaceuticals. There's also good news for job seekers from non-metro cities. Around 54% of companies are expanding their hiring search away from Tier 1 cities to emerging talent hubs. The survey, however, also pointed out a gender diversity concern with a drop in women participation to 33% in 2022 from 36% in 2021. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Plus. For more incisive news analysis and cutting-edge documentaries, keep streaming News 9 Plus. Thanks for watching.